Okay, we're moving along here in Romans. It's been boy, I love this book. Didn't used to, didn't really understand it, but I feel like I'm getting some understanding. Let's recap quickly. Actually, it looks like I found out why it sounded like I was in an echo chamber or speaking to you down a long hallway because I had this in the wrong spot. So it should be better now. So we see Paul called to be an apostle. He was called initially by his family and normal human calling to be a Pharisee, religious leader, like someone would be called to be a priest or a teacher in our world, and people think it's an honorable position. Well, Paul was granted one of those honorable positions, prestigious, very prestigious, and gave it up to answer the call to be an apostle. And then he said, you people in Rome are also called to be saints. And saints are to be doing the work we know from Ephesians, I believe again, chapter 5, where Paul is speaking to the Ephesian Christians, and he says, God gave gifts to us so that we can all learn to do the work of ministry. And that part of the work of ministry is doing good in the world, but the biggest part is sharing the gospel. People need the gospel more than they need anything else. So they were called to be saints who would share the gospel with others. And Paul wanted to come, he said through verses 7 through 15, he wanted to come and impart a spiritual gift to them and preach the gospel to them so that they understood it, because it's quite likely there was a return of the exiled Jewish Christians who had come back after 5 years of exile. And, we all cultures have their traditions that they hold dear to. And it was quite likely that the Jewish Christians returning were going to bring some of their Jewish way of thinking into this Roman church that was being established. So Paul said, I want to get there. I want to make sure the gospel is the main thing that you're preaching and that you understand it, that I give you the gifts that I have as an apostle to establish the truth, the foundation of this church that needs to be established so that it doesn't get twisted into something where it's as all the other churches where there was attempted to, the Jewish believers there was many times leaders who came from that Jewish sect of believers and tried to impose the laws of Moses on the Gentile believers, and Paul just was heading that off here, it appears. So as the Jewish Christians were returning, he wanted to get in there and make sure they knew the gospel was the main thing. Now, the reason the gospel is important, again, is because that is where we have our righteousness in Jesus, and it's declared through the gospel. So when we say the gospel, we're not talking about belief in a thing. We're talking about faith in Jesus, and it's called the gospel because it is a summary of what that looks like, how that works, and what we are actually trusting Jesus for. So that's the gospel. And Paul's not ashamed of that. Now, why would he potentially be ashamed? Well, like I said, he gave up... Oh, my hair. Sorry about that. I don't know if I made it better or worse. Anyway, I can't even see what I'm doing, so hopefully that's better. So Paul said, we have the gospel to live by faith by the gospel. And we'll see through this letter here that there is a tendency in human beings to want to live by a law that makes us feel good about ourselves. Whether that's, I'm such a good follower of the law of Moses, I'm such a good person because I vote for the right political party, I'm such a good person because I don't do these things that we all know are probably not the best thing to do. I don't have we tend to go to extremes to prove how good we are sometimes, you know. Not only am I not an alcoholic, I don't even touch a drop of alcohol. You know, you don't have to do that. That's your thing. That's fine. But we tend to use those as ways of proving our righteousness. I don't judge other people. I live and let live. You know, we have these laws that we give ourselves. I support the right. I support the poor. I support oppressed victims. So I hate Putin. I support people who are fighting against Putin because he's an oppressor. You know, we do all these things. That makes me good. My group of people that agree with me on this is what we believe is good. I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in war at all. We are the good people. And I'm not saying those things are good or bad in themselves. Some of them are actually probably a good position to take on certain issues. But those things do not bring us righteousness. And what we want to do as humans is we want to present our righteousness to God. We want, like Cain, to take the work of our hands, take it to God and say, looky, looky, aren't you proud? And God, although he creates us to do good, he creates us to create and to be creative and to work and to produce and to be satisfied in the things that come from the hard work that we put out and the products that come from that. We are never to take those things as an offering to God in the sense of this is what makes me right with you. I am now right with you because I'm bringing this thing to you. You should be happy and pleased with me. That's what made Cain so angry, was that God said that the Lord disregarded his offering. I truly believe Cain went with a smile, and it said his countenance fell. He was happy. He went to God with this thing. Look what I did. Look how good I'm doing. Look it, I'm doing awesome, right? God was like, that's not impressing me. And he wanted God to go, you go, boy. You're knocking it out of the park. God didn't do that. Now, how did he know that God didn't do that? I don't know. Was there more of a presence of God where you could actually hear his voice? I don't know. Somehow he knew God was not accepting his offering. And it made him really, really mad. So mad that he killed his brother for having an offering that was accepted, which was a very similar kind of offering, but yet it came from a different heart. It came from faith. So what we're seeing here, Paul said in Romans, or not Romans, I'm sorry, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Paul is saying here in Romans, we are taking those things captive. I am not ashamed of the gospel. I am not going to go around creating a righteousness of my own. I am taking my thoughts captive. When I think to myself, the good I did here, God must be impressed. I should be able to take this to God, offer it to him, and have him go, just amazing, good boy, you are good, you're a good person. I need more good people like you in the world. No, Paul said that is a lofty thought, a pretension, a argument against God. So when we get in here to where Paul says the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith in the gospel, for it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Then again, he says, for God's wrath in verse 18, God's wrath is revealed from heaven against all godlessness and unrighteousness of people who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. When we take our supposed creations of our own righteousness, the things that we've decided make us good, and we offer those to God, we are suppressing the truth of righteousness by faith. We are suppressing the truth of righteousness because of what Jesus did and because of the Spirit that he puts within us by faith, so that we can bear fruit by walking in the light of that righteousness that he gives us by faith. And that's a daily thing that we walk in. We walk in that. We grow in that. And that is what makes us righteous. And if we don't do that, if we're not coming for righteousness that way, we are suppressing the truth in unrighteousness.